all I want to do right now is really welcome you all. And I'm seeing more faces, and it's all very exciting. So I'm Linda Desmond, and it's my pleasure, my real pleasure to introduce some pretty exceptional people. Judy Cockerton and Carrie Homestead and Hannah and
Holly.
And Holly, and her last name?
Handfield.
Of Handfield. Now, I have to tell you why. I up till about 5 minutes ago, it was supposed to be someone else. I just have to explain that. I'm kind of new to this. Anyway, I'm going to just quickly give you an overview of Northampton Neighbors. It's all, both Treehouse and Northampton Neighbors sort of following a similar path. We're reinventing a new way of living. And Judy obviously is going to tell you all about her thoughts and her visions on her movement in reinventing and re-envisioning foster care. Well, Northampton Neighbors is reinventing and re-envisioning how we are growing older in our community. It's part of the village movement. There's 340 villages throughout the country. We're also in Canada. We're also in New Zealand. It's just, we're basically older people, basically empowering ourselves to help us grow old with dignity. There's also, I really recommend anyone who needs to know more about the village movement or Northampton Neighbors to look at our website. We have things like, we have neighborhood circles to bring our neighborhood communities together. We have a listserv that's very active, and it goes on. And this isn't about Northampton Neighbors, but I just applaud our movement and our re-envisioning the aging experience. Judy and I go back a long way. Carrie and I go back even longer. And I had the option, I had the privilege of actually working with her as when she first considered the movement of creating a treehouse in East Hampton, Massachusetts. And it's one of the most exceptional experiences that I've ever had in watching it develop the way it did. When my role was to help her find older people to live in the community. Unfortunately, I left the country about 6 months after I came on board with her. But somehow she found some of the most exceptional people I know to work with her. But I'm not going to go on. Now, Judy herself has won awards, national awards, international awards, and started a number of programs to change the children's lives in the foster care system. And she has made such incredible changes and outcomes that were exceptional. I can remember actually being on her committee when she was recognized by Dr. Phil and given a very nice check along with that visit. So Judy, knowing you and knowing Carrie, as far as I'm concerned, you're two of the most incredibly visionary and caring people I know, and it's been my privilege in the last 20-something years for Carrie and the last 15 years of knowing you and calling you guys friends. So now I would like you to let Nina, would you let Judy and Carrie kind of had the screen a little bit, and I'd like you to both tell us a little bit about what happened. How did Treehouse come about? And then maybe go into like, where is it going? And I'll interject questions along the way. And now, first of all, last of all, if anyone out there has any questions, please just put it in chat and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. Okay, Judy and Carrie, you're on.
Judy should take it away. Yeah.
Oh my, well, thank you for that amazing introduction, Linda. It has always been a pleasure to work alongside you. We're so grateful that you are now a Treehouse Foundation board member. And so this opportunity has come our way. I just have to say, 21 years ago, I became a foster parent. And that experience led me into the world of child welfare. I had been a teacher, I had been a businesswoman. I really didn't know much about the world of child welfare. When I became a foster parent, I just knew that I wanted to help. And so I entered the world of child welfare with a 5-month-old on one hip and a 17-month-old on the other. My children by birth were 12 and 18 at the time. And I just began learning. And I think the three most important things I learned within a very short period of time is that every year in this country, 25,000 young people age out of foster care alone, without family, without community, and they become the next generation of poor and homeless Americans. And learning that reality while holding a 5-month-old and a 17-month-old, that was a catalyst for me to actually change my life and become a full-time advocate for children and youth living in foster care. So my mom was one of 9 and my dad was one of 4, and I grew up surrounded by fabulous aunts and uncles and cousins and this intergenerational grandparents, this intergenerational family community. And I knew that in order to move children out of the public foster care system into a permanent loving family, if they couldn't be returned to their first family, and to help those families be successful, because I was standing on the front lines of foster care while I was learning all these things and imagining a different outcome and a different future and a different way of caring for our children and youth living in foster care. And so I really began thinking about, what are the ways that we can help move children leave the public foster care system so they will never age out alone? And then how can we surround those families with the best possible support? And having seen intergenerational support my whole life, that was what I was inclined to look at. And I read in a People magazine one day about a woman in Rantoul, Illinois. Her name is Brenda E. Hart. And she created this amazing community, intergenerational community on an abandoned Air Force base. And it was for families adopting children from the public foster care system and older adults, older Americans, 55 and older. And I was really wowed by what she was doing. And I called her and said, Brenda, can I fly out and visit this community? And so I did. And I spoke to every parent, every child, and every elder in the community to see if it was worth bringing this model back to Massachusetts and completely changing my life for her. I would have to sell my business. I would need to, to take on a new job. And I went out and I spent a week there, and I came home ready to replicate that beautiful intergenerational community model here in Massachusetts. And I went to the commissioner at the Department of Children and Families and knocked on his door and said, hello, my name is Judy Cockerton, and I would love to support the work of the department if you would like me to. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm actually re-envisioning foster care in America, which that might sound grandiose, but I was just thinking, what could I share? What talents could I share that would lift everyone up? And he said, I love the idea. And I said, I would love to start in Western Massachusetts, because everything I read in the DCF quarterly report says that's where the largest number of children experiencing foster care reside in the Commonwealth. He agreed. And the next day I got in my car, and I'm on my 5th car now. I got in my car and I drove out to Western Mass and began meeting wonderful people like Carrie and Linda. And I began talking about this intergenerational community, and people lined up and said, yes, we would love this to happen in Western Massachusetts. And, within 5 months, we had about 250 people in Western Mass who were very, very interested in seeing an intergenerational treehouse community come to fruition. And so I went back to the commissioner because I had no expertise in housing at all. And I said, sir, I can bring people together but I don't have a clue how to build a community from the ground up. And he had been the head of the Cambridge Housing Authority, the Boston Housing Authority, and the Chelsea Receivership. So he was connected to a lot of wonderful developers who really understood nonprofit, the world of nonprofit, the world of child welfare, and affordable housing. And he introduced me to a wonderful man named Howard Cohen, who was the president of Beacon Communities in Boston. And Howard agreed that he would help us build the first Treehouse community in the Commonwealth. And he shook my hand after our first meeting and said, within 24 months, we will deliver services and housing to children, families, and elders in Western Massachusetts. And true to his word, in June of 2006, we opened our first Treehouse community in East Hampton. And Carrie, who had started working with me before that, came on board and was our community facilitator for 14 years. She's now training additional community facilitators, but for 14 years, Carrie was the, I would say, heart and soul of the Treehouse community in East Hampton. And it's been such an honor and a pleasure to work with her. Carrie, jump in.
Well,
Yes, please.
thank you. It's always hard to follow you in many ways. And I just want to give hats off to Holly, who has jumped in with Treehouse grace and flexibility, which we practice often and truly appreciate. As Maureen had to suddenly pick up her sister at the hospital, and Holly is so gracious to step in. And I just wanted to give a picture of the three of us thinking about Treehouse growth and replication around the country on Holly's birthday. I don't know how many years ago that was, Holly. We drove, you, Judy, and I drove to the Albany, the offices, New York State Child Welfare offices in Albany to give a presentation on this model. And today, this model is being replicated in 2 places in New York. It's in process. But I think I offer that story as a way to illustrate the importance of partnership that is so much a part of Treehouse. We want to be a true community in terms of how we're working together and how we are re-envisioning foster care, and I would say re-envisioning aging and how we're aging and living with purpose. How we can support each other in intergenerational ways as well as within our generations. At Treehouse, the youngest over time has been an infant, and the oldest person who left reluctantly was 96. And so we really have multiple generations within our intergenerational model. And I just want to share personally, I have many decades been working in the child welfare arena in Western Massachusetts, and very aware of the issues of poverty and race and lack of opportunities colliding with social policies that really thwart the capacity of people to move forward within their families and communities and so on. So when I met Judy and was invited to participate in this, it was somewhat of a godsend because I was feeling very despondent about how social policy was constraining the kinds of opportunities that I knew helped families move forward. And I love that Treehouse is, it's really, it is such a collaboration both among organizations where we also have a child welfare partner. The Treehouse Foundation is very dedicated to collaboration, which is also a real salute to Western Massachusetts, where collaboration, I think, is more possible, where we all are invited to step out of our boxes and think differently about the work we do, whether it's in the field of aging or housing or child welfare. I think over the course of years at Treehouse, I have seen this gem of an idea really come to fruition in many ways. And I have seen and been humbled by the amazing just ways that people can flourish and take leadership. And I know we'll be showing you a little video shortly. just exemplifying some of the voices of our older adults in the community. And we have had fun with aging, I would say. I think that's fair to say, Holly.
Yeah, I'm moving my location because like all good days on Treehouse Circle, the lawn guys are here. And I can't hear you above all their equipment.
Okay, all right.
So
Well,
I'm
you do
hoping
that.
that I can move to a place that is a little more quiet and that the dog is going to be happy.
All right,
Because he's
all right.
not happy when the lawn guys are here. So let's see if I can do this.
This is a perfect example of grace and flexibility, which is our motto.
Oh, you have to have it or you're sunk.
Yep.
Anyway,
Holly, we're going to share the just the video of pioneers that we created in a couple minutes, and also, you know, invite you to share any perspective you would like in terms of what you brought. But just, I think to stage that, I think the idea of promoting leadership amongst community members, in particular, for our discussion, you know, older adults, is really vital to us. And we have learned as much from what people bring to the table and ideas shared as much as we may have thought of great ideas or whatever, but it's a true collaboration. And what's most heartening to me is how people, I think we grow individually. I know personally, professionally, I have grown tremendously through my work at Treehouse, and I think it's a very important part of purpose, living with purpose, and connection, which I think is fundamental to our well-being. But I think I see that exemplified every day at Treehouse, and it continues to deepen. And because we're you know, we're not a short-term, we're a long-term operation here. And many people have voted with their feet about this model because they have chosen to stay. Many people thought they would check out this sort of new model. What is it? Is it a senior community? Is it just for kids? What's going on there? And as we have become a sort of a new intergenerational concept, and that has joined the vernacular in our country more, I'm just very heartened at the possibilities before us. And we are also, we have achieved in the research we have done to date, and we certainly want to do more. You know, we have seen very positive outcomes among our children. We hear about things every day in terms of the benefits of Treehouse for all ages and older adults. And I think in terms of well-being, older adults are reporting, certainly compared to peer groups, much as we might, outcomes our children who've experienced foster care with sort of the norms in the country, we are doing well, if not extremely well. And so we know on a daily basis that things are going well because of what people share with us, and there is not a lack of people doing that, as well as the outcomes we see. So I wonder, yeah, go ahead, Linda.
No, what do you wonder? Please tell me what you.
Well, I was just wondering if it would be lovely if Holly could introduce herself, and then I think if everyone would enjoy, it would be nice to see the video. Just, it would give you a little bit of more of a picture of Treehouse, literally, because it has a lot of visuals. I know we'd all prefer that you were looking at that instead of at us. And then we'd love to, you know, just join in conversation with you, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So if it's all right, I think I might ask Holly to say a few words first, and then we'll show the video. And then following that, we'll have some questions and answers from people, you know, about their thoughts. From my thought as a gerontologist, I just feel that this is an incredible model, and that since isolation is one of the significant problems when you grow older, and it's equitable to smoking 17 cigarettes a day. You don't feel, I've never felt isolation. I've just felt joy and laughter at Treehouse. So it is reinventing aging. And Holly, love to hear about your thoughts. Okay.
Well, I came here about 12 years ago. I was working at the Habitat for Humanity, and a coworker told me about Treehouse. And I came and visited, and within a year, I was lucky enough to get one of the smaller apartments at Treehouse for seniors. And after I came here, I got a job with the Council on Aging in East Hampton as an outreach worker. So I've seen both sides of the coin, so to speak. Aging in senior housing is isolation and regret and just plain sadness, and knew that that wasn't anything that I wanted. So I was here for a couple years, but on my own in that smaller cottage as a senior, and kind of took a while to figure out what my role was going to be here. And I discovered quickly that people like to eat. And that was, in the beginning, my gift. I opened a Saturday morning cafe that families, the kids, the seniors would come on Saturday morning, and we'd get together, and I'd make a big breakfast, and we all just got to know each other. And it started to feel like family, and it is family. I have a lot of kids that I've seen grow up since I've been here, whole generations actually. And I've always looked for something that made my life feel whole. And I never wanted to be not doing something. And so I'm never not doing anything here. Right now with this COVID thing, it's a little harder, but I've mentored the kids at the Tree Cat Cafe, which is a youth run cafe that has local talent come, and taught them how to cook for a great amount of people, how to serve them with a smile, and just be very flexible with everything. And I'm, the kids that I've worked with have become close to me. The other thing that happened to me while I was here is that I became a grandparent raising grandchildren. My two grandsons were kind of dropped off at my door. And so I moved into a family unit, and that's where I am right now, still in the family unit. And my grandson Xavier is now 22, and happily I tell you that he has just been accepted into STIC, but he said he would never go on with any other school. But he's becoming an adult and sees the need for him to further his education. And I'm celebrating right now. I know I don't look it, but I am celebrating his life and our life together. It's been very hard, but one of the things that Treehouse has given me is this wonderful staff that has helped me through the bureaucratic end of being, a grandparent raising grandchildren. It's a little different than fostering. There's a lot of different rules. The boys had a lot of problems, and I got help for them, and it was the staff that helped us through it. and the whole community is a group. Everybody kind of helps everybody else. And I don't know right now where I would be with the boys if they weren't there to help me. But as a senior, even if the boys weren't here, this gives you something to look forward to every day. You know, you can't go outside of your house without seeing a friendly face or somebody waving to you. It's just a wonderful community. And I've gotten to do so many things since I've been here. I've been, you know, I've spoken in different places for Judy. And I enjoy that fully. I don't think I ever go any place without telling the people where I am, where I live, and what we do. I even carry brochures around with me. So, you know, I like being a spokesperson for this cause. It's important to me. It's important to this country to help our children create a better future. And we can't do that unless we help all of the children, not just those privileged. So now the kids that are here that maybe weren't thought of as so privileged are sometimes more privileged than the other kids because they are given so much love here. So I don't know what else I could say except that I love Judy and I love Carrie.
Oh.
And I love being
We
here.
love you. I think you do want to tell people, Holly, that in November at our 8th annual Re-envisioning Foster Care in America conference, you danced on the stage at Brandeis University with an intergenerational dance troupe and knocked the
I
socks
did.
off, and you knocked the socks off of people from all across the country.
And you know, and there's something about that dance you don't know, Judy.
Oh,
These things, these banners that we were waving around, you remember?
yes.
Those colorful banners. Well, because I was speaking and because I've had hip surgery, I wasn't too good about getting up on the stage. I needed a little bit of help. And I didn't have any pockets to put this thing in. So I stuck it in my bra. And
Of course you did.
I got up on stage and I turned around so that my back was to the audience, and the kids were there and they saw me reaching down into my shirt and they're like, "Miss Holly, what are you doing?" And I pulled that thing out. I thought they were going to die right there. But I had a heck of a good time.
An important life lesson.
Yeah. So, but you know, the kids, they went with it, and I had a wonderful time. We have dancing in the street here on Fridays with Kate and Katie. You know, and everybody gets to get up and do their own little jig. I don't jig too well anymore, but I do enjoy that. You know, we do a lot of outside things now. When people leave, we have parades and they walk by and we wave. We just are making the best of that situation, which I think everybody is. But here on Treehouse, we have our own little way of doing things. And it's just a wonderful place to be. And I can't imagine myself anywhere else, actually. So.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly, for sharing that beautiful testimony. And that's truly exactly what you feel when you go into Treehouse. Everything that you projected, the camaraderie, you know, the importance of intergenerational experiences. From my perspective, I absolutely hate age segregation. And you do everything it doesn't happen there. You forget that. Every time I walk through that threshold, I forget that I'm 71 years old. It's awesome. What I want to do now, we're going to show a 5-minute video on the other people and the other successes. First, I have a quick question to either Carrie or Judy. How many older people actually live at Treehouse right now? And how many families and how many children?
Right. Yeah, thanks. Good detail to give you a framework. The Treehouse offers for older adults affordable housing, which is an important concept, especially given the priority needs for affordable, accessible housing for older adults. There are 48, as Holly called them, cottage, sort of single-story cottage apartments for people 55 and older, and there are 12 family homes with 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms, sort of designed to allow sibling groups to stay together if possible, and to offer diversity. And half of the family homes are market rate and half are affordable. And given the makeup of our housing and the different funding streams that we're able to create that, including primarily federal and state tax credits, we have a tremendous range of income and background and diversity at Treehouse, which I also think is one of our strengths, that brings people together across all kinds of differences. So typically in the community, there are about 120 people, 110, 120 people, depending on the number of children in a family at a particular time. About half are older adults. We do have some couples. Most right now in our census at Treehouse have been single women. Some have had careers, been single most of their lives. Some are widows. Some, just a whole variety of stories. We've had people come to Treehouse from far away because they heard about the concept and it really called to them, and they did want to, in their next chapters in life, have an opportunity to live with purpose in a community and have a sense of community, which is something I think that really calls many people in terms of meaning, and then a sense of community and connection. So again, quite a diversity there. We do have some single gentlemen and couples, so quite a variety. And many of our 12 families, interestingly, and I think very importantly for our model and just for looking at the future of child welfare in America and supporting families, half of our families typically are dad, who's an adopted dad, and we have we also have some couples, but we have women who have really stepped up to support children in the best ways possible.
Great, thank you. And Judy, just before we show the movie video, but where are you going from here? Quickly, because I mean, I just would love to show the video, but I also think it's important how this is going to be a model and it's spreading, and then there's all sorts of different avenues that you're taking to.
Right. We have several very exciting irons in the fire. We're working with a team in California to build Treehouse California communities in the Bay Area. We're working with a team to build a community college model, and we're working with Greenfield Community College on that special project. There are 2 Treehouse inspired communities that are being built in upstate New York, and we're consulting on those projects. We're working with another housing partner on creating a Treehouse area, and we're consulting with other folks around the country. So we're very excited to be expanding the work and sharing it with others.
Yeah, I think one thing that's become really prominent, highlighting what Judy, what she shared highlights, is that I think the need for affordable, accessible housing is a critical issue for AARP. It's one of the top issues facing older adults in the United States. So that continues to be a really important issue. And then there are certainly parallel issues for children and families, and the fact that intergenerational goodness is really being embraced as a very solid approach to so many things to promote individual wellness and better outcomes for children, families, and elders. I think because that's gaining traction, that I can see the strength of this model is that we really address a lot of critical issues all in one model.
Mm. Yes, Linda, we love to tell people, Carrie's absolutely right, that we are at we operate at the intersection of child welfare, vital aging, and affordable housing. So really wanting to create this intergenerational community model, housing model that lifts up 3 generations and really operates in all those different sectors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as we look forward, we're wanting to diversify more the range of housing that's available to older adults, because we know occasionally we have to turn away people who are over income, and that is that's always painful and hard for us, knowing the desire people have to participate. So we're looking at different ways to look at housing and financing. So that's also an exciting domain of growth.
Great. Well, you're making magic happen. So to our video, please.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Well, the whole idea of elders interacting with children really appealed to me.
I heard a piece on National Public Radio.
I was in awe of what was going on.
I met everyone and I thought, this is the place for me, because I never wanted to live someplace where there were just older people.
The first thing about this place is it's vital. You're meeting people that are brilliant and have had incredible, incredible histories.
Well, I really believe in the mission, and I really feel like a lot of times elders are just kind of put aside.
The Treehouse vision was the place for me. I'd always been a teacher.
The mission, I always wanted to do something local. With so much conflicts going on in the world, and to find out something that is just right in your backyard.
It's a very personal connection with everybody in the community.
I can open the door and find any number of things that I can poke my head into.
I don't remember where I grew up having that kind of neighborhood feeling that you have here.
Bringing all of that movement, dance, music, art, just bringing that and have that spirit of having happiness still in their lives.
It's perfect. It's perfect on so many levels.
This is probably one of the most diverse neighborhoods I have ever seen.
I grew up in New York City. When I came down here and I saw the kids that were familiar to me from my childhood, I said, oh yeah, this is where I'm going to be.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, where you came from.
We're here and we love each other because we're here and we're all people. And it's like I finally got it. Like, yes, that's it.
Mary's always been there for the kids. They often knock on her door.
Seeing these kids who had a neighborhood, of their own, and that they really belonged here.
And this is their forever home.
They like to call me Grandma. I mean, every one of these children are meant to be something amazing. They're my family, really. They're my Treehouse family.
We learn a lot about trauma and the effects of trauma.
Looking from that broad perspective, that you have a lot to offer from.
This is Treehouse. You're safe.
We have a wonderful staff here.
And there's always somebody here who makes themselves available.
We make really close friends here, which is nice.
My neighbors know what I'm going to do before I do.
Mary Steele, who's an elder in the community, and Rosa and I have been friends since I first moved here. We go to Burger King and get a cone together, and that's our big outing. And then Rosa will take us. Actually, she gets lost, but she pretends she's taking us down these beautiful roads to be able to look at the scenery.
You try to do little things. Someone will call me and say, I'm going shopping. Do you need anything?
It's like we do show up for each other, and it's authentic, you know.
I really feel like I belong here.
I feel free at Treehouse.
I've been so cared for and loved and respected. It's like pretty awesome.
I think it's made me a better person, a kinder person, certainly.
I think just the idea of still having a purpose in my life as I'm aging.
I feel like Treehouse has grown me up in a lot of ways.
But it's just really living it, because to have all of these things to you, you know, everything available, a garden, which is like a rarity.
It's given me a place that really feels like home.
I love Treehouse.
I really can't say enough about what is being accomplished here.
It's the community I always wanted to live in.
That's what keeps us going. Never stop learning.
I don't want to go anywhere else. You know, I live here. It's my home.
The world needs to come together and understand kids belong to all of us.
I hope people can see what a joy it is to be able to volunteer and stay involved with kids.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm now opening up to full screen. This is the time that if life was perfect and we were at the senior center with this wonderful presentation, we would say, okay, we're passing the basket now. But since we are online, we followed a little bit of a different way to do our fundraiser. First of all, Northampton Neighbors is a village, a member of the village, and we are one of the few in the country of the 340 villages that do not charge a fee. So Nina is show, and so if you would like to make any type of donation, you're welcome, and you can just see that little screen thing, and we need your support. Please make a contribution, no matter how small. And so if you just would go to www.northamptonneighbors.org, if you wanted to make that donation, we'd appreciate it. But again, this is not why we've asked you here. We've asked you here to hear about some of the most exemplary examples of working with children and older people that I have ever heard of. So now it is time, and now we can take that down, Nina, and we'll try to open up. Thank you very much. I love this behind the scene. Oh my God, I am so glad. I can't thank Nina enough.
Thank you, Nina.
All disappeared if I had to do with the technology. Anyway, thank you. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, you can put it on the chat, or I can see you. So if you want to raise your hand, we can do it that way too. Right. It's easier. Does
or
anybody...
folks can unmute themselves.
Janice, Nina. Yeah, okay, would you unmute yourself, Janice,
yes,
and ask your question?
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
My question is this: what supports or are in place or not yet in place for seniors as they age and might have to deal with mobility challenges, health challenges, etc.?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. When we opened, I think the term at the time was aging in place, and we were aware of that. We were aspiring to that. What we've now been able to do is see people living it. And I'll be curious to see what Holly has to say about this too, as well as Judy. But what we've been able to see is because of the design of the community, people have really been able to adapt. And for example, if someone is, someone has come in from being pretty active and ambulatory to being living more of their days in a wheelchair and confined in that way. But they've just been able to adapt within their apartments. We have always intentionally, we're not an aging organization, and we just want to make sure that, and Rocco is making that people are connected to what they need. So I think the transition most people have taken is that they get services to come in when they can to help them, whether it's house cleaning or getting food or whatever, and just figuring out to adapt. Some people have left because they needed more support to be safe. For example, their families were really concerned about their capacity to not turn the stove off or things like that were just raised too many safety issues. So there have been transitions there, but what I have seen is predominate is that people have been really able to adapt to their changing capacity at Treehouse, and a huge amount of support, which I think is really the strength of the community, comes from neighbors. Neighbors help each other out a lot. In all kinds of ways. And so that's the intragenerational as well as the intergenerational. And whether it's a family that's giving back to an elder who has supported them and their children for many years, and really is watching out for them all the time, and or friends within the neighborhood who watch out for each other. So I think it's a lovely blend of people bringing in services, as well as just a wonderful example of a neighborhood supporting its members so that people can stay here. Even if we have experience with people whose memory is fading, for example, and we know both that they are deeply in love with being in the community, and that's really important to them, and their family knows that. And so we work together as a team to keep our eye on their safety, collaborate with the family, and do best by somebody we love. So I think that's my answer to your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a great
question.
Anyone
else? Any other questions? Lynn. Oh, yes, Lynn. Just unmute yourself.
Mute, yes. I'm just wondering how people are selected for the community. Is there some sort of screening process? Because you probably get more people interested in it than there's room for.
Well, I'm really glad you asked that as well, because one thing I just want to say is I really appreciate you sharing this, with other friends, so people are aware that this could be an option and something they might be interested in the future, or for members of their family. The application is driven by housing in part, because it's a housing application at its basic component, and then we have priorities within that as people identify their mission alignment, which is really important to us. When we first started, we were an incredibly new concept, so that was a challenge to be filling up a community quickly and having people learn about this new concept. I think now pretty much predominantly people are quite aware of this and are very drawn first by the mission, because I think the idea and the desire to live with purpose is something that's really driving more and more of our generations as they're looking at where they're going to be living and how, but not exclusively. And we do a lot of, so we do have a wait list, I will say that, and we're always looking for people to be on that list, because housing doesn't necessarily turn over very quickly, although sometimes it does when there are sudden changes. So essentially, if people are interested, they can come to Treehouse, and you are all very welcome to come for a tour. It's a really informative, and people really enjoy this. We do offer regular tours. They have been on hold during COVID, but we are re-looking at how to customize and offer tours of the community so that people can learn about it. We've had people also come to us who are who find out about us, maybe a retired teacher, someone in who has some experience, who start volunteering and then apply to live there, or sometimes people on the wait list choose to volunteer and sort of become part of the community by being sort of extensions of it in the broader community. Hope that answers your question a bit.
I guess.
Sarah, please unmute yourself, please.
So I'm wondering how the children are identified who live at Treehouse. Are they children who are living with foster parents and then the whole family comes into Treehouse, or does someone come into Treehouse and then look for foster children that they'd like to care for, or all those things? How does that happen?
Great question. So we do, as Carrie said, we have priority families and priority elders. And Carrie just talked about our priority elders. Our priority families are families like mine who have already adopted children from the public foster care system and would like to live in a community where they're receiving ongoing supports. It could be a parent who is interested in taking the MAP training class and having a child or sibling group placed in their home for adoption. And it also could be someone who is already in that process, so is already taking the required Massachusetts parenting and partnership class, and they are looking for additional supports. Those are our three main priority families.
Yeah, and I just like to make note, as Holly illustrated, I think especially as older adults, it's always good to recognize just the growing number of grandparents raising grandchildren. That's a very significant issue in Massachusetts. And you know, as we look to replicate in different areas too, we know that that's going to be one of the issues that we're definitely addressing in this kind of model as well.
And the Department of Children and Families also has prioritized placing children living in foster care in kinship or relative caregiver placements, homes. And we certainly have had grandparents, aunts, and uncles who have adopted their relatives and have lived at Treehouse.
So can you tell the outcomes of, you know, I think that's a pretty significant thing. You know, you can, if you start looking at the people who have been incarcerated through the years, there is a correlation with the numbers of how many children were in foster care. This is what really touches my heart. The outcomes that you've been able to measure with the children, please share a couple of those, please.
Sure. I think most importantly, as an educator, when I first became a foster parent and looked at the very dismal educational outcomes for our children and youth living in foster care in America, less than 50% of our children experiencing foster care are staying in school and graduating from high school and going on to secondary education, whether that be community college, four-year college, or a vocational program, training program. And so at Treehouse, what we've been able to do, because we customize the support that we offer to children and youth and families, and kids come home from school, they do their homework in the community center with tutors and staff members and elders as well, and they have available to them customized support from the time they arrive until they launch out into the world. And beyond, I must say. We just from Holyoke Community College, and they're on their way to their next stage of education, and we're putting safety nets in place for that as well. So it's long-term and ongoing. but we help kids as programming so that they're succeeding in school, they're staying in school, they're graduating from high school, they're going on to community college, they're going on to four-year colleges, they are enrolling in vocational programs and job training programs that support employment for them going forward. That's a huge difference from their peers who haven't experienced a Treehouse community kind of safety net, let's just call it that. Intergenerational community living, that's huge. We don't really have any young people who are connected to the juvenile justice system. We don't really have any pregnant and parenting moms, which is teens, which is pretty remarkable for children who have experienced foster care. Carrie, are there other outcomes that you think that Linda would like us to talk about?
No, I think those are the major ones, and always I'm just impressed every day at the outcomes that are harder to measure that we see in the growth of individual to have sustained long-term connections, which will carry them forth in their life in really significant ways. We do focus on permanency at Treehouse, so we like to think of the community connections that are established really help people launch into their lives in ways that give them solidity that kids who had broken connections don't have.
Lynn, okay. Two last questions, and we have about 2 more minutes to do this. We did really well in keeping on track. Lynn, would you say your words?
Yeah, I just was curious about foster care. Can be, some kids can go in and out of it, or go from one foster parent to another. And then you seem to be talking mostly about kids who started in foster care but were adopted and in more permanent type of situation. And I'm just wondering how that's reflected in the community.
Yes, Lynn, that's a really good point. So at the very beginning, when I was doing my introduction, I spoke about that statistic that I learned when I became a foster parent 21 years ago. And that is that nearly 25,000 young people age out of foster care alone every year in this country. And they are basically the next generation of poor and homeless Americans. And in an effort to reduce those numbers and prevent a solution, or create a solution, not prevent, create a solution to that particular challenge for our country. The Treehouse model helps move children and youth out of the public foster care system if they can't return home to their first families, and create a permanent loving family system for them, and then surround them by the love and connection of this intergenerational community. So we really are trying to dissolve that pipeline to the next generation of poor and homeless Americans by giving kids an opportunity not to languish in care if they can't go home, but to be removed from our public foster care system and placed in a home and a neighborhood that fully supports their success and their well-being.
So you're looking for kids who, I mean, a lot of kids in foster care, they don't know for a while if they'll be able to go home or not. It sounds
That's right.
Okay.
That continues. Yeah. Just and I appreciate your question, and doubling back to it also. I think what we found is that those realities that reflect many things, including just what you just said, that there's an effort to have children go home perhaps, or things change. And so families that have dedicated to supporting a child have ridden a variety of waves, and so have we, as we look to figure out how to best support a child through those, whether they're going back home, or some of our best practice has been when a family is very much embracing a child's first family, their birth family, and building bridges that would enable a successful return, or if they're not able to return, you know, having constant visitation and those kinds of things that support a child. But we know that because the system is, there's so many unpredictable factors that come up, legal and otherwise, that a child's goal may change from what we had originally anticipated. And what we do is we definitely work with that, because we want to honor our commitment to a child and their family and what's best for them.
Thank you. We are running over. Betty, I'm going to ask, and if anyone needs to leave, that's fine. Let's hear from Betty, because, and this will be truly our last question.
Great. Very quickly, I'm curious about the MAP training, and I wanted to know just really quickly how one can take the MAP training, and if you can say just a little bit about it, that would be really helpful.
Training is the 24-hour required course that anyone in the state of Massachusetts who is interested in opening their home to a child who's living in foster care is required to take. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, I would call the Department of Children and Families, I would call the Greenfield office, the Holyoke office. If you need any help with that, please, you know, give us a holler. But there are also other agencies. 18 Children and Families is a child welfare agency that offers MAP training. Valley. And so taking that course is required. A home study is done during that time to make sure that your home, your family is a good fit for becoming a resource to a child. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes, and we have a sort of a customized training that we call a Treehouse MAP that we adapt to incorporate some of the pieces of MAP, which are, for example, learning about trauma and so on. And we constantly are infusing, sort of increasing our awareness of those issues, which are certainly relevant across generations at Treehouse. And if you would like any further information, I'm sure Linda might share our contact information. Be really happy to help you. And I want to put a plug in for supporting older kids. One of our oldest adoptions at Treehouse was just before a child turned 18. And we also have a regional program for older youth who've experienced foster care called Heroes. It's a youth leadership program, and our intention there is to build community and connection among youth who often feel so isolated and alone, and to promote their leadership. We often use Treehouse, the community, as a touchstone, a place for them to meet, but also to be building connections and awareness and promote resources for kids in the region.
So this is we are to the end of our program. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carrie, Holly, Judy, you rock. You rock. And
so does Northampton Neighbors.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For having
Go
us.
Northampton Neighbors.
Thank you. And Judy, thank you for thinking of Western Massachusetts 15 years ago. And you're changing the world, and the world needs to be changed, especially now more than ever. Does Sarah or Mark, do you know what our next speaker is going to be? So we can do a little plug. I don't have that in front of me. Wait a minute, because then you can see what's happening next time. Can you
Is it Rebecca Starr?
It's Mary Young, I believe.
Mary Young. And can you say a couple words about her?
I believe that's solo aging.
Solo aging, right.
Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay, so, and that'll be our next one. And just look for our invite to come. And so it's sort of the complete opposite of what we've learned today, how we have learned to live within a community intergenerationally. Now we're going to learn next time how to live alone in a good supportive environment too. Thank you, you all. You know, you're doing wonderful work. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you.